lesson in Swahili is dedicated to all you beautiful people around the world. We say, Jambo!
Mungu akubariki.
Mungu akubariki. Bye-bye. Good to be excited.
Yeah, that's right.
I introduce myself.
Yes.
Or Laurien, you introduce me.
So I want to introduce you first. Then Joshua, will you introduce yourself as well? Because you are a great person. So, Joshua, I'm with my friend.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Sane. So Barwende Sane is from Burkina Faso.
Yeah.
Le pays des hommes et des femmes intègres. Integral persons.
I love it.
So he's a Pan-Africanist. And he's a great scholar. He published like a dozen of books.
Oh, no.
He's in the area of social justice, but also Black Lives Matter, and many other things. So he wants really freedom of people and justice for all. That's about it. But maybe you can say more.
Oh yeah, I think you said what is really essential and important. So hi, Yeshua, it's my pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Laurien have said a lot about you, your passion for Africa, your experiences, and your love for what we have been doing in Africa. So it's my pleasure to have you this morning.
Yeah, it's good to be here with you both. It's nice to meet you. Sane, how should I call you?
Barwende.
Barwende.
It means praise the Lord.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
That means I'm always in good company when I can praise the Lord.
Exactly. So
we
praise God.
We have something in common. My name Joshua means God is salvation.
Oh.
So we praise the Lord and say God is salvation.
Exactly.
God is saving us.
It's well.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
And Laurien,
nice names.
Laurien, it's always good to see you, always to be in your company, even if it's virtually. It's a blessing.
Thank you very much. I had a good time with you.
Yes, we have. We've enjoyed. That's right.
So Joshua is in Detroit, and he's doing a ministry in parishes. He has many parishes there.
Yeah.
So I think we have a time to visit him.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm an associate pastor here in Detroit, and it's been good. And two different main parishes with a few parishes that are included with them. So yeah, it's been really good. I love Detroit. It's my hometown.
Connection is a little bit.
With your connection?
Oh, mine.
But when do you have a good connection?
I'm not sure because sometimes it's I
Freezing?
lose the voice. Sometimes it's come back.
Okay. So no problem. We shall correct it.
Okay,
maybe,
but from now it's good. Yeah, from now it's a little bit good. Yeah.
Barwende, could you start some questions to Joshua so that we delve into our topics? Our topics, the lessons learned from Africa, from the field, what Americans think of Black Africa. Joshua Peters' wisdom learned from Nairobi, Africa. So I would like to give a word to Barwende and bring some questions to start our conversation.
Good.
Yeah, thank you, Laurien. Thank you, Joshua, for being here to nourish our conversation. So I've heard you have been in Africa and you have been in real contact with some of our people there. So please, can you share with us some of the challenges you have experienced in Africa, alongside the good things you have certainly seen? What are for you the current challenges for Africa and Africans?
Yes, thank you again for having me join you. It's good to be in your company. I wanted to say that just so there's some context for the experience I had, so that you know, I was in Nairobi, Kenya, from January until about June of 2019. You know, in life before the pandemic hit, and you know, it is a mentality that we have to go back to remember that life was different before this global pandemic. So one of the blessings was that I lived in Nairobi primarily because I was studying theology there. I was an exchange student, if you will. But I think the best part about my time in Nairobi was not necessarily, I mean, I had good classes. I don't mean to say it like that, but I think my best experiences in Nairobi were not necessarily in the classroom. Outside of always learning new information and meeting new people, I think the blessing of my life was working in the different apostolates that I found in Nairobi. One in Kibera, working with the Missionaries of Charity, which was very just, you know, care for those who were very vulnerable, those who were unable to care for themselves, you know, bathing them, washing and cleaning changing the clothes and things. Very humbling, I thought. Scrubbing the floors, you know, the good things that need to happen. Walking into Kibera every day, meeting people along the way, people who are running shops, you know, and in the markets, the toy market in particular. I enjoyed. I love meeting folks and greeting everyone, you know. And then I was also toward the end of my time able to visit Tanzania and also Uganda. So a little bit more around Kampala. And in Tanzania, a blessing was to be in Arusha near the base of Mount Kilimanjaro, and then all the way to the lake side of the country too, and just to take a slow bus all the way across. And what an experience that was in itself, you know, to take that bus. Someone said, "Man, you took one of the slowest buses that runs through this country." I was like, "Wow, what are you gonna do?" I watched some great music videos. Great. And you know, I leaned up next to that mama who was sitting next to me, who just snuggled in for the drive. But I enjoyed so much those experiences, and you know, I think you're right. I think it's good to focus on both, you know, because both is a reality of life. You know, there's some really good high joys and love and peace that come and hope with people. There's also some real challenges that you describe. I like the we all kind of have an Ignatian language in a way, in this imagination of consolation and desolation. Consolation, the things that draw us close to God. Desolation, the things that maybe are moving us or are obstacles sometimes that we place or are placed between us and God. You know, so that's the kind of way I think of consolation and desolation. And I think, if I could say this, is this a good time to get into consolation and desolation, or should I hit the pause button?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. So just here's some perspective as an American. You heard kind of the different slices of Eastern Africa I saw. I want to just say, as an American, my view, in part, is that I learned very quickly that I have experienced Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, and only in a short amount of time and in a limited experience. And most of that was in East Africa, that I stopped saying that I've been to Africa, because I don't know what it's like to feel the wind on my face in Ghana, or what it means to see the water in Angola, you know, or to even say that I've touched the sand in Egypt. You know, there's a lot to that continent, and I talk about Africa as a continent now that I didn't necessarily before. I talk about my experience in Kenya. I get very concrete. So here's what I learned, though. I heard the consolation for me, more than anything else, what moved me to God every day was that I saw something we call in the United States Black Lives Matter, or you know, in another generation we used to say Black is beautiful. You know, I'm Black and I'm proud. I saw this alive every day in action. I saw my saying as I started to prepare myself to leave Nairobi was, in East Africa, as I experienced it in Nairobi, Black Lives Matter, Black is beautiful as a way of life. This isn't a slogan someone needs to shout from the rooftop or on the top of a crate. You know, this is a way of life, and I loved it because I got to witness it, and I got to celebrate Black excellence and Black joy and Black lives every day. It was a blessing, and it brought me closer to God. God was with us in that experience, and that's just something that happened to me. I didn't set myself up for that. This is the reality of that I was seeing with my eyes. And even in some tough neighborhoods in Kibera, I saw people looking out for each other. And I'm not saying it's perfect there. I don't want to, you know, gloss over the challenges in Kibera or other places. But I saw some beautiful reality of what it means to be Black in this Eastern Africa, but also what it means to be Black in the world. Now, the desolation comes when I compare that to my experience in the United States. Now, clearly, even though I'm a Kikuyu from Detroit, you know, I'm of a very light hue. You can see just the way that things work, you know. I'm a very light hue, so I'm speaking from my experience that I've seen, not necessarily lived, and I want to be clear about that, obviously. But the desolation comes with, I even know that my experience in the United States has been that folks I know through colleagues from work or friends from church or just friends from life, they will tell me that, you know, they have to convince people that Black Lives Matter in the United States. They have to actually make a case that Black is beautiful in the United States. And and again, I think that makes me very angry. But I don't even see anger as desolation. I think the anger that comes when I realize this, that in the United States we can't just say as a given Black Lives Matter or Black is beautiful. That makes me angry, and I think that's righteous anger. Where the desolation comes is I start to feel overwhelmed, like that this is so bigger than me and we can't do anything about it. And I don't think that's of God. I don't think that's where I start to move away from what God is doing in my life in this world, when I start to feel the overwhelming nature of that frustration. So that's a little insight into my perspective.
Thank you, Peter. And Sane has also a conference in Central Africa. So if you want to stay with us, you can stay. But if you don't feel really constrained, but this is a good conversation. Huh?
Yes.
I like what Joshua is saying about Black is beautiful.
Yeah.
And we too, as a Black, we think also white is beautiful. When you come to a village in Rwanda, you see women and men, even kids, waving to you, greeting you. Oh, white, Muzungu.
That's right.
Yeah.
Muzungu.
Yeah, because we see that in white, they're beautiful. So it's a great pleasure to hear also a white say, "Oh, Black is beautiful."
Yes,
that's beautiful.
Yes.
So
it's true.
So I would like to ask Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes,
I
but
really like your your answer, your experiences. So as Laurien said, I have to move to another conference in 10 minutes. So sorry for leaving this nice conversation, but I will be happy to know more about what you will have to share here. So a question I am leaving with you before I leave the floor. It's when you compare the Black people you have seen here, African Americans here, and the Black you see in their native continent in Africa, what kind of comparison can you make between them? So I know comparing is never just, but it's also important to have an external view like yours, how you see from here to Africa, what kind of desolations and consolations do you see from both parts? The African Americans living here and the Africans living in Africa. And even sometimes the Africans who are coming in the US during these periods, and also the African Americans who are moving to Africa. So if you have some experience to share about it, I will enjoy. But Laurien will share it with me later.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's my pleasure. Thank you for the answer you will give.
Yes.
And God bless you.
Yes. Peace be with you.
Thank you, Barwende. Have
Tuko
a nice
pamoja.
conference in Central Africa.
Thank you.
Yes. Many blessings.
Blessings. So you reply to me, then I share with you Barwende.
Okay. Yeah. No, I would say it's an excellent question. I like that he mentioned all of the different nuances, that how complex this question is, because I think it's a temptation to make things so easy, so simple, you know, it's one way or another, but you see how complicated it is, that there are folks in Eastern Africa I would meet that would say, I want to go to the US. I want to move there. That's where the land of opportunity, you know,
Yes.
In some ways it's a myth, and there's always a truth to it as well. And so I would say to folks who were wanting to move from Eastern Africa, from Kenya, imagine, you know, like a beautiful country, you know, or Rwanda, beautiful country, not without its challenges. They want to move to the United States. And I'd say, you know, it's not like the United States is a paradise. Like sometimes we Americans like to share it. Oh, this is a paradise, you know. It is a beautiful place. You know, there are a lot of challenges. And I think our caste system, now I'm not the one that named it this, but the caste system that we have in the United States that we have established since the beginning, mostly based on economics and then the sin of racism, it's really hard on people who are not white or who don't identify as white. And that's just has to be said. And so if someone comes in a very vulnerable state to the United States, it can make life very difficult for them, because they're up against something more like what the folks on the African continent might relate to best is maybe what happened in South Africa, apartheid, and how devastating it was and how traumatic. That's a little bit of the dynamic in the United States, and it just has to be said, you know. That's a part of our reality in the United States. Now, at the same time, you know, is Eastern Africa, is the Kibera slum the largest slum in the world? Arguably one of, you know, there are other slum areas, as they're called, in Nairobi, even in other parts. And some people say, like, I don't want to live in a slum area. Now it's like, okay. And like, there are a lot of politics, a lot of history, a lot of economics that go into these stories. But part of what I'm also acknowledging is it's not like, just because one lives in Mother Africa, on the continent, that life is going to be perfect for them. You know, there are challenges there too. And like we know there are conflicts, and there are all these things that are traumatic, and refugees, and people are having to leave their homes. And, but this is part of the reality of the world we're living in. But some of that perspective I gained was that at the end of the day, I think there's something really beautiful about people realizing that if you're like, if I'm talking to someone who's Kenyan, to remind them in a way, through my eyes, through my visitor eyes, to say, this is a beautiful country with beautiful people. And then sometimes they'd say, oh, you know, it's almost like you have to remember sometimes how beautiful we have to be reminded. I am a beautiful person. You know, I'm made in the image and likeness of God. I live in a beautiful place, and that's a good thing to remember.
And I guess you met different guys from Kibera who loving you, helping you, and following you. so
generous.
Generous.
Yeah, and I loved a funny thing was when I would meet little kids in the school, little kids, like young ones, like, you know, 4 years old, 6 years old, you know, they thought it was so strange. They thought they were meeting like a weird goat. They would take my beard and they'd say, "Oh," and they touch my head and they look at my skin. They're like, "Oh my God." And it was fun. It was fun. It was like a little kid saying, discovering, you know, someone that, and I think that's the beautiful thing is, you know, where we start to run wrong as humans is when we start to separate ourselves. Or I've created a whole story about people or a place that is not grounded in actual lived experience and shared experience. And I had a guy in Nairobi say to me once, a young man in his 20s, he said, "You're the first white person I've ever really talked to."
Yes.
And then he explained his experience. And I was like, I mean, I thought he was kidding at first, you know, because we joke all the time. But then he was serious and he told me a story and I was like, wow, man, this is the crazy thing that can happen between humans when we forget who we are.
Sure. So some white people, when they live here from here to US to Africa, there is a background thing that when they reach to Africa, they see that some snakes running around and giraffe. And so how your first impression when you saw Nairobi with his very cosmopolitan?
Yes.
And what was your impression? Did it happen something of shift? I think maybe you have visited other countries, but what has shifted from your mind?
Yeah. Yes, I think exactly what you said, to just realize what a beautiful modern city Nairobi is. And that's just one of many in Eastern Africa. And then if you go to Western Africa and different parts, you know, there's just beautiful capitals, you know, and places. And yeah, there are rural areas, but you know, I know that from the United States too. There's some very rural areas in the US. And yeah, and I'd say one of the blessings of my life is that so part of it is it was a dream. I was not sure ever in my life if I'd ever be anywhere on the continent of Africa. I hoped, I didn't know where, if it would be Eastern Africa or Western Africa or somewhere in the middle, but I hoped one day. And sure enough, part of that hope came from two friends, a friend from Cameroon and a friend from Kenya I'd known before many years ago. And they were the ones that always said, so in some ways they prepared me. They'd always joke that so many Americans think that, you know, you're in the city or even just anywhere and there's a lion, like, oh, you know? or that people are like riding giraffes to work or something. It's like, you know, like they'd always say like, oh man, it's not what people think, like, or even that story that gets told by Americans so much through the nonprofit lens, where they show a child like with a big belly and flies, you know, around his lips and stuff. And it's like, oh man, that's how they try to tell the whole story of what a region is or a continent. Yeah. And it's like, and I knew some of that coming in, but yeah, to see Nairobi and to be there, yeah, it was just beautiful. And I loved it. Here's the irony of the whole thing. Here's a city in a municipality in a cosmopolitan area, like you said, who's put a beautiful national park so close to the city that ironically you can see animals that are in a park, but it's so, I love it. I just think it's
to be damn fenced.
That's what people say. They're like, they'd be in their balconies at work, you know, and they'd be like, don't fall off, you know.
Yeah.
I think what a beautiful reality to
actually
share that with people who are living in a city. When
I lived in Nairobi, I was deceived because I was thinking that I'm gonna meet the giraffe. at the airport. Then I found the painting. The painting.
Isn't that right?
Why are they painting?
Yes.
They have to let them come.
That's right. JKI be like, oh man, I might see a zebra right when I get my bags. Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm really happy to be talking to you, and maybe I can ask you the last question.
Yes.
Do you have some words of wisdom you have picked from Nairobi, and what would you tell to Americans who did not have a chance to come to Africa?
Yeah. Oh, yes. You know, I think this is an excellent question, and this is what I picked. You know, because I did try to learn, you know, a few words in Kiswahili. I wasn't there long enough to really get very good with the language, but I picked a few words, and that's, I think, the wisdom. If I can combine those two things, that a few of the Kiswahili phrases that I've learned that people just say every day. I mean, it's not like it's just my outsider's lens looking and hearing these words and then understanding their meanings and then applying my own experience. Yeah. But I love this little phrase, kidogo, kidogo.
Kidogo, kidogo.
And it comes, you know, it's a part of that bigger phrase, you know, but people would say all the time, oh, little by little, kidogo, kidogo, small by small, step by step. You know, we have that phrase in almost any culture, any language, kidogo, kidogo. And so I love it anyway, little by little, you know, like sometimes that's how we have to take life, little by little. But you know, kidogo, kidogo, I think became, for me, as I've witnessed it, it's also a way of life. It's a life philosophy for folks that I witnessed in Nairobi. Like, for example, the toy market that I pass through every day on the way to Kibera.
Yeah.
That part of the Kibera slum, toy market, vibrant, you know, sellers, you know, ingenuity, entrepreneurial spirit everywhere. You know, you're not witnessing people who are sitting on their hands and saying, oh my God, you know, or lazy, like this myth that gets told about people who are working people. So I'm witnessing this every day. Well, this Kibera, the toy market, burned to the ground.
Yeah.
Nothing left. Nothing. I remember walking through one day. I was like, it was so bizarre. It was like I might as well be like walking on the moon. You know, I was like, from just one day it was there, one day it was gone. And I was meeting people who were like picking up things, you know, from the ashes, literally.
So you saw it burning?
I saw it smoldering. And I talked to people and I said, you must be devastated. And they say, yeah, I'm devastated.
Yeah.
Kidogo, we're gonna rebuild. And I was like, there's no way. It's like, there's no way. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, yes. And they said, no, kidogo. I said, oh, okay, good luck. Wouldn't you know it, 1-2 months later, it almost looked like it did before. Like, I could not believe, like, almost to yep, that's where that shop was. That they rebuilt Kidogo. And sure enough, like Kidogo. Progressively, they were almost as good or better than they were, and they were commencing. And was it painful? Was it terrible? Yes, it was devastating. And Kidogo, they found a way.
Yeah, that's the powerful resilience.
Oh my gosh, and I think it's, in some ways, Kidogo kind of gets at it just a little Kidogo. The other one I want, Pamoja. I always joke and I say that, and people, like guys I know from different parts of Africa, will say, tuko pamoja. You know, when they see me coming, you know, because I love that phrase, and that the whole idea of we are together, you know. But you know, what I loved is, yes, even in English, when our professors are teaching, they'll say, "Are we together? Are we together?" As a way of checking with their students. You know, do you understand what I'm saying? Do we need to stop and talk about this? Do you need clarification? Am I not making sense? Are we together? And then tuko pamoja is a statement of saying we are together. And I think that's a really important phrase that I saw. Like that kidogo in the toy market would have never happened if people weren't also in their pursuit, because they took care of each other, they looked out for each other. Tuko pamoja, they showed that they were together and they got to where they wanted to be. And I saw that in numerous ways. I could tell so many other stories, but I think those two phrases became the real blessing for me.
Thank you, Joshua, for sharing your wisdom. And I hope a friend you met in Arusha and in Nairobi will be happy to listen to you because this was a unique experience, and not let it forgotten.
Yes, I've been blessed, and I want to say that to all my other American Messiah out there, I'm just very grateful for.
Wow, imagine.
Yeah, just kidding. I'm ready in Detroit for whatever comes. You know, if it's cold, if you know. But the American Messiah are here. We're ready. We're helping.
You're a Messiah, man. Okay. Take care.
Yes, brother. So much. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you very much. And I hope we have a time, Barwende and I, to visit you in Detroit.
I would love that. I would love that. And as we, as they say, tuko pamoja.
Tuko pamoja.
Yes.
Okay, see you. Have a wonderful ending of the year.
Thank you. Yes.
Tuko pamoja.
Mungu akubariki.
Mungu akubariki. Bye-bye.
All right, see you.